All right. In looking at the stage one, you guys, one of the things to consider absolutely is the approach to a campaign. You definitely want to always take a positive angle versus a negative one. And so, Bernardo, your question is, raising awareness versus reducing incidence of a disease. Yes, we want to raise awareness, but as educators in the back of our head, we know our goal is to reduce incidence. So, because honestly, deep down, no one wants to be looked at as being broken or be negated as, and that's partially interpretation by people, to be negated in any way possible. All right. You will get more out of people when we focus on the positive and encourage them for creating a positive change for themselves and others. And that's the empowering, not the negating tool, but the empowering tool. So Marissa, I still need to take a look at yours. And yeah, you guys, I'm gonna shift off of the 5 health. I know you need the 5 health for the next assignment, I think, but I'm gonna shift off of it and go to stage 1 and work on that instead so that I can keep you guys moving. Okay, so that's my commitment to all of you. But with the exception of poor Marissa, the ones I saw so far looked good. You guys were on the right track. Right? Susanna, we talked about it, and Carissa, we talked about it, and Diana, fabulous. Okay, so let's take a look at what you guys came up with in terms of your discussion points, because I'd like to hear from you guys and your interpretation of this information. So starting with the first one for JR, talking about DOI. Let's see, where was the question of this? Are there any specific ways in which a health education specialist can identify which people fall into which category of adopter in order to promote a large buy-in and therefore create that ripple effect? So, part of this is understanding your audience. What do you guys think? Is there a way for a health educator to know when developing a DOI? Did you guys discuss this?
Yes, we did. We're just a little shy, I guess.
All right, Mohammed, I just threw you under the bus. You get to talk about it.
Okay. Well, like one of the 2 things that I mentioned was sort of okay. So the first one is research. You really need to know your population, what their barriers are, what like all the ins and outs of the problem that they're facing, in order to really design a plan that could that could attract a lot of early adopters at once. And also another aspect was campaigning, making sure that you get your word out there to that community. Mm-hmm. Also for like specific ways, I believe Bernardo, I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong, mentioned something like, if you are like working with people, working with people directly, like in sort of like a lecture or something like that. If you notice that there are people who are volunteering, who are, speaking up, those are usually the people who are going to be the adopting the most. I think kind of what you were saying, the more you put in, the more you get out. So just trying to look for those people who are putting in the conversation.
Good. Okay, so part of it is, you've got actually a variety of different things going on here. I mean, one is the research aspect, okay? Knowing your population. 2, you want to take into consideration, it depends on the topic. I mean, if we're talking about teenagers and fashion, then maybe people who are more plugged into Instagram are going to be more the early adopters versus being the laggards, being slow to adopt. So you've got to take into consideration the type of population. I mean, if we're talking about seniors, if you're choosing a topic that's not really oh my gosh. Like, for example, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there is this semi-epidemic problem with seniors doing abusing substances. And I'm not talking about alcohol, I'm talking about drug abuse. Drug abuse has been on the rise with the baby boom generation. Part of it is because they have the capital, they have the money, disposable income. Part of it is because they're familiar with some of this stuff back from the 60s, the 70s. Part of it is because they no longer have responsibilities and they're aware of that. So they're like thinking, you know, hey, what does it matter if I shoot heroin or get stoned or snort coke? You know, I'm not doing anything that'll impact anyone else. Well, au contraire, because this is showing up in our ERs, this is influencing the family structure, even when their children no longer live with them. How do you take your kids over to the grandparents' house if you know they're using heroin? You don't. So there are impacts. So obviously going to the senior community and trying to do an education on abusing uh, 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 substance abuse or you know, things like opioids and stuff might have a little more acceptance because this is a real concern for them than if you were to go to teenagers and talk to them about senior abuse of drugs, right? So you got to know your population to make sure that it fits together. And then you and Bernardo make a really good point, which is when you're in the classroom, you do start to identify the people who are the early adopters. It's intriguing. And it's the same within a classroom. You know, body language alone will indicate a lot. You'll have some people who'll be sitting in class and they'll be like this the whole time, staring at you or on their phone playing the whole time. And you know they're disengaged. The vast majority of them have no interest being there. And those are the laggards who likely will never come to the party. But the more you get people enrolled, then you've got the others who are kind of, you know, they've got trepidation, they're back, you know, cautious, watching, and then they slowly start to pick up. So it's, bottom line is, you guys, it's both. It is the doing the research, the investigation, you know, definitely approaching the right topic with the right population. If it's a mixed population, then you know it's going to target some groups more successfully than others. And then, you know, reading the people. So really, really nice. I like that you guys brought that in. That was pretty cool. Good. Okay. So does that make sense, you guys? Mohammed, you're going to be the spokesperson on that one. Okay. Jasmine says yes. Bernardo says yes.
Yes.
Okay, that helps. All right, good.
Yes.
Okay. RP, after reading about the, thank you, Marissa. After reading about the health belief model, I was curious about any potential limitations it may pose. The model doesn't take into account habitual behaviors or non-health related reasons. In a way, the model insinuates that the action cues will naturally encourage everyone. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. However, that is not always the case. Are there other models we can use in conjunction with the health belief model to strengthen its primal purpose? Well, you know, the health belief model, you guys, tell me about what you, this is, I honestly, I will tell you, in my opinion, this was a complicated question, partially because in so far grading the 5 health education models and theories, I saw a level of misunderstanding, understanding the health belief model and how it's applied in real life. But who would like to address this, please? I mean, do you want me to call on you or does someone want to volunteer?
I can talk about it, or did anyone else want to?
No, girlfriend, you just stood up.
Okay. I feel like I was a little talkative in the room, so I don't want to step on anyone's toes if they wanted to talk. But basically we kind of just went over a lot. Everyone actually kind of had some really interesting thoughts about this one, just that it really isn't, the purpose of it isn't to explain, the purpose of the health belief model isn't necessarily to explain every person in the population's behavior. And it really is just kind of a tool for us to analyze behavior and to make predictions about behavior. And that predictions are just that we can't see into the future, so we don't really know. And we also can't see each individual's circumstances. Mm-hmm. So there are non-health related things that are involved in every individual's lives. Mm-hmm. And each of those things will factor into their health choices, just maybe not just as much as all the others, but definitely each person will have a unique life experience and thus make unique health choices.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So my question for you guys is, can you visualize how the health belief model would be used in application for education? Mm-mm. Okay.
In a sense, yes. were you saying how it would be used to target like education in a certain topic, or what exactly are you asking?
If I were to say to you, Susanna, I want you to go out and I want you to educate people using the health belief model, how would you
Got
do
it.
that?
Well, I feel I would first basically see where they stand in the certain topic. So I guess I would stand or see what barriers they have, or if they see the topic to be any, if it's severe, or I'm just basically going what the concepts are. But if they see any seriousness to it, and then from there on, I don't know, I feel like I would have to assess the situation to basically go from there to see how I would educate them in what way. I feel like I have to get to know them first, get to see how they see the topic in general, to be able to help them out from there. I can't just educate them without getting to know what they think, or what stands in their way, I guess I can say.
Nice. Yes. So it's the perception, right? You need to explore, first of all, what the perception is of people. As you said, to identify what's their position on that information. So when you think about something like immunization, you've got to have an idea, first of all, of what is the opinion of people. Okay, what is their perception? Is the immunization good or is it bad? Is it that people want it and embrace it, or do people fear it, or do people refuse it, like they cut off your arm if you make the effort to immunize someone? These are very real things. So you do have to read the population first. Secondly, you want to create a communication mode. And then thirdly, you do the application where you create the possibility of applying it. So the immunization is a great example, in my opinion, because you figure out what the perspective is, the position of the people. And then you customize the campaign to address that, to target, to help people target that belief of health, what the payoff is for having the immunization. So for example, if you go to the pediatric doctor's office, I mean, obviously families are bringing their children to the office because they want child care, wellness for their children. And then while they sit there, maybe there's posters, maybe there's those videos talking about getting your kid immunized for whooping cough, because whooping cough is easily transferred between children in their school environment, and that this can have really negative ramifications and can pass easily through the family that will impact all family members. And you have this education component in the waiting room while you're waiting. And then when the family gets in, either with the nurse or the doctor, then it's very simple. They have it built into the program that, at this age, is the time to do the whooping cough, the pertussis immunization. And this is something we'd like to be doing today. And are you in agreement to that? So it's that initial, as you said, it's understanding the position of people, knowing your community. Because what if you're a medical office in a community that is massively anti-vaxxer community? Oh my gosh. That'd be a crazy uphill battle. But for the general population, you have that feel of people's perception of it. You would open the conversation through general education so that people have already been exposed to it passively, and then you start to target it one-on-one to effectively complete the shot. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So bottom line is the health belief model can be applied in education, but it tends to be kind of group education and then one-on-one follow through. All right. Okay. ED, number 2 question was between the trans theoretical model and social cognitive theory, which better explains the attribution of socioeconomic risk factors to disease.
Oh, I'll answer this one. I basically think that, well, we talked about it and we came to the conclusion that it was a social cognitive theory, because a trans theoretical model is more like I guess like more like an individual, like how will they be in, like what action they'll take or be willing or ready to imply new healthier behaviors, versus like the social cognitive theory is more, it's more like environmental and you learn on environmental influences, reciprocal of the person, and it influences like behaviors and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I would like you guys to consider that it actually really applies to both. Okay. Diana, you're correct 100% that the social and the socio aspect really sync up with each other. Because social is literally social being. Social cognitive theory, a really awesome example of education would be support groups, because you have in that environment of people of like conversation, contributing to each other, feeding off of each other. Another example of social cognitive theory is your Al-Anon meetings, right? Where you have people at different places in time who are exchanging information, and it creates that structure and comfort of what life looks like without alcohol, by seeing others in the environment who have already been down that path, and then seeing what it looks like when you have a setback and have to continue forward. So that's that socio aspect. The economic aspect, the financial and placement in society, in my opinion, actually fits a little more in the trans theoretical model, because as you pointed out, that's the personal journey of the person. When they're in the pre-contemplative, the contemplative, they're going through these stages of events, and things that can become barriers and fit into that conversation because it's more individual, even though it could be in a group setting, is the barriers a person can create would be the economic aspect. Because the socio aspect, you've got the construct of someone leading the class and educating you versus a group setting in the SCT. But the economic can play into the SCT also, but in my personal opinion, I think it fits a little more in the trans theoretical. So socioeconomic risk factors apply to both, is the bottom line, because in both situations you have human beings, right? And it's a human experience.
I have a question. I like thought that too. I had like brought it up at first maybe, but I didn't know if I was just a little confused. But I kind of thought maybe that the trans theoretical one, because it says like it's like a being willing or ready to imply new healthier behaviors. I feel like that can be like environmental, like based on like social determinants. I mean, I don't know. Can you explain that?
Okay, well, a couple things on that. The trans theoretical is no guarantee that the person is actually going to be ready. Because if they're in a pre-contemplative stage, they may not be ready at all. They may come for the education and then pick up and leave and be like, not me, not interested. I don't have that problem, or I don't have that interest. And they'll exit. So there is no guarantee the person is even ready. And in terms of I'm sorry, Diana, I lost my track on the second thing that you said about that, social.
Determinants?
Okay, the determinants. I have to speak from my experience on this one. And because the trans theoretical really is an individual experience, because it's really in your head initially, okay? And it's not as much as like the DOI, where you have the different stages of people and it creates that ripple effect, and you wait and you watch others and then you decide it's okay. It's you have a little more of a drama and story in trans theoretical, where people need to come to the party on their own. And they may, like, I always find it amusing when I have classes and people bring guests, or I've attended seminars and they bring guests, and the guests go through the whole event, and then they're like, oh, that was so cute, have fun, I gotta go now. And it's just like, did we not just go through the same class together? So there is that possibility that someone could go through the trans theoretical and never even exit the pre-contemplative stage. Okay, so, and that could be, honestly, it's the same with education. I can have people who come into classes and through the whole course of the semester start and go all the way through to the end, and barely get into the contemplative stage. That's called failing to turn in their homework and being completely checked out. So I don't want you guys to assume that any type of health model or theory is going to produce results. We want it to, because that validates the program and keeps it going, and especially for finances. But it's not a guarantee. I mean, I have had whole classes, and I sometimes swear to God, I think it has to do with how the stars are aligned. I've had whole classes where I did the exact same curriculum and the same presentation for this class as that one, and the results are night and day. These people are like, woo, we get it, this is amazing, and we're empowered and we know what we're gonna do. And then I can have people who go through the whole series and they're like, I gotta go back to my life now. Thanks, goodbye. Don't ever take it personal, okay? So does that make sense, you guys? You know, there's only so much we can do, and people will still decide how much they interact with the experience and what they want from it, or if they even truly arrive beyond physically being there.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, I mean, did that make sense, you guys?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. For June, that was just an N. Okay. When an individual does not perceive themselves to have a problem, and by the way, I'm reading these because I don't remember what they are. When an individual does not perceive themselves to have a problem, there's a lot of those out there, and you try to educate them and convince them to take action. Okay. I'm just going to tell you right there, that's where it stops. You do not convince. You don't. Okay. We are not used car salesmen. Okay. Do you guys get that? We don't convince. We don't try to educate. We don't try anything, right? Trying is contemplating. And maybe even pre-contemplating. No, what we do is we educate. We provide resources, we provide information, we provide support, we provide listening, we provide an opportunity for people to ask questions and to share. But what we'll never do is convince, okay? Because the moment we convince, we've really crossed the line now of no longer respecting that person's pacing of if they're ready for the information. We've crossed over into their personal space of making their own decisions, all right? But refuse countless times. So what happens then? Now that's really the question. What happens then? You can't cross that line. You respect their space and their decisions, then what? Is the health belief model rendered useless then? The section of the book doesn't discuss what happens if that's the case. And that's an excellent question, you guys. So what did you come up with? What happens if it's a no-go? Who's going to share?
We didn't get to this one in the group, but what I think, I don't think it would be rendered useless, because at the end of the day, if you used it and then the results were, well, they don't really care about their health, or they don't see a problem, or really are understanding the risk factors, if they're kind of like refusing, you know that at the end of the day, and like you said, you can respect them and allow them their space, and when they are ready, they can come back, you know, and because they know where the information's at and stuff like that.
Yes.
So
Excellent.
I don't think it's useless, because you actually get to learn where they're at, and you can see like, okay, well, these people want help and see the risk and they want to change, and then you can like weed out the ones that don't really want to.
Yeah, you know, the conundrum is you don't always know. Okay. You can have someone in the class that you think is totally on, and they could be intrigued and curious and thinking about it for someone else, not seeing themselves in the conversation. You can have people who are like, yeah, but when they walk out the door, they're like, no, never mind. All right. So you don't really ever know, unfortunately. You just have to kind of put it out there and trust life. But the most powerful thing is there is nothing lost, because what you're doing is sowing seeds. And you said it exactly correct, which is they now know where the information is, where to find it. They know how to find their way back if they wake up one day and get it. All right. Susanna, did you, or no, Jasmine, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on because like you said earlier, there's only so much that you can do to change and like try to promote healthier living across like between people. So, but just because like the health belief model doesn't work doesn't mean that like it's not useless.
Mhm. Absolutely. You know, it just, everyone comes to the party at the time that's right. And a great example is, think about parenting. When your parents told you to do something, they might have said it until they were blue in the face and you just didn't hear it. And then all of a sudden somebody else says something to you and it clicks and it makes sense. And then when you're like, hey, I'm going to do this, your parents look at you like, I've been telling you that for years. It's, our listening sometimes is either not there, or maybe it's even just not presented in a way that we understand. And I'm not talking about just language barrier and cultural barrier, but just sometimes in human communication, it's how we frame information and how we process it. And that's kind of speaking to the point when I said is that when you guys ask a question, sometimes I'm answering it and then I realize, oh my gosh, is that answering what you're asking, or is it answering what I think you're asking? And the classroom is the same scenario, is that, what people come in and what they hear, it may fit their conversation where they're at in life, or it may be a seed that's planted and it will become relevant later. But absolutely, Jasmine, you're correct. Nothing is ever lost, you guys. Absolutely nothing is ever lost. And I'm just always thrilled because sometimes, someone will come in and out of a program and walk away and say, yeah, it's not me, but they see the value of it and they refer someone else, and that someone else comes along and they're just like, oh, this is what I needed, So possibility, folks, is a very unbridled thing. And sometimes it's a mystery that we cannot always predict. But keeping ourselves open to possibility is the most important thing we can do. Okay, did you guys have any other thoughts on that one?
I did actually. Well, maybe not specifically with the question, but one sort of idea that I've had in my head was that these models, these theories and stuff are all very general, that they are very hard and fast, very concrete, like this input and then this output.
Mhm.
So one thing to keep in mind is that it's general. It's meant to apply to like very like to like a large group of people, and unfortunately that is a reality that not every person you try to reach out to will be a success case.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Also, Professor, are you okay? I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I thought it sounded like you were sounding a bit emotional while you were reading the question. So just wanted to make sure if you're okay.
I'm okay, but I'll tell you, my voice is going.
Oh, okay. That's what I was hearing then.
Yeah, you guys, you got to understand when this is my 4th class today. And, I do apologize, but it's interesting. I've noticed in the last few years, it's getting worse, that when I'm working with students and I have a lot of lecture and interaction time, my voice nodules, they're taking a hit and I don't know what's going on, but yeah, but I'm also dehydrated because I've been drinking lots of coffee. So I'm trying to get more water in. And so dehydration is part of it. Mohammed, thank you so much for noticing that. I appreciate it. It's a reminder. Yeah, if you guys ever want to yell at me, like you don't see me drinking water, be like, yo, water. I'm human. So, Mohammed, what you're saying, and it's very true. And, this is why it is an unpredictable environment, because, even speaking to the idea that there's that possibility the education could end up being large, it could be small. I mean, it's interesting. I had this one class when we were in person pre-COVID up at our Anaheim facility at Kaiser, where my classes were, wow, for our education component, I had our largest, I had 40 some people. And that's intense because it's a lot of, you have to do a lot of one-on-one interaction within the group to make sure people understand the application to their personal health. And, you know, and that goes along, and I've got a rhythm and I know how to do it and life's good. But then one day I had one person come to class. I've got the same material to execute with one person. And so the takeaway point is that the dynamics have the potential to shift constantly. All right. And that means, you know, shifting in language, shifting in age, shifting in quantity of people, shifting in interest level, shifting in listening. You know, something, by the way, a little trick I really recommend in the classroom whenever educating people is, and I don't know why I don't do it with you guys, but maybe I'll get back into doing it when we're in a classroom someday, is to get everyone to create a clearing in their mind, which is basically a 5-minute meditation, because this is something important to remember, is that when you go into a classroom, when you're educating people, communicating with people, whether it be doing private, you know, coaching by phone or doing it in a classroom or an internet environment, we all come to the meeting with a lot of backstory, right? A lot of things that are occurring for us in our world, whether it be, you know, something that is stressful or a tragedy or hunger or being late somewhere, and that distracts us, and that distraction can interfere with the information that we access, because it takes us time to calm down and focus. And so when you're in a classroom environment, if you find that people are not connecting with you, like you see that they're just kind of all over the place, do a 5-minute, whether it be a breathing exercise or a meditation. And maybe what we should do is practice that one day, just so you guys get the difference, if you haven't already, to get people to reconnect with the topic you're on and where you're at. So something to think about that just brought to mind. Okay. All right. And the last one, KB, the health belief model emphasizes the role of perceptions of vulnerability to an illness, or condition, and the potential effectiveness in the treatment. Yes, it appears that individuals need to recognize a health problem within themselves. Well, health problem or concerns for a potential health problem, right? Like the pertussis, the whooping cough. I want to know, what if the person is in denial of obtaining, I would say that means experiencing a health problem, and if he or she can possibly be at risk for an illness or already have it. How do we then, okay, so if they already have it and they don't know, we may not know either. Okay, think of it in terms of like COVID, you know, COVID, you know, a virus, and I don't care if it's COVID-19 or anything else, you know, a virus is not something you can see, and it takes a little bit of time to incubate. So you have no idea when you've picked it up, where you've picked it up, and if it's going to impact you, or you're going to slide through it with minimal to no symptoms, and or you be a quote unquote carrier because you don't have symptoms, and then you potentially pass it to other people. I like to say now's not the time to go around French kissing strangers. So want to know that if the person is in denial, possibility already has the illness, how do we then encourage positive health changes that the person believes they do not need? Because it's a stand that we make, right, you guys? What did you come up with this? What other models or theories can be used to approach this type of situation if the health belief model cannot be effective? Ooh, last question. That's a good one. Did you guys come up with something for that? An alternative to the health belief model? So if it's a situation, let's say like immunizations, let's say COVID immunizations, right? You know, our government, our CDC is saying that, you know, getting the shot is really important. We want herd immunity. We want to reduce the likelihood. And the person standing there and saying, I've never done a flu shot, I'm not going to do flu shot. Then what other models or theories can be used to approach this situation if the health belief model is not effective? What do you guys think?
I think that's a pretty tough situation, just because we're basically trying to convince somebody not necessarily convince, but we're basically trying to, I guess what I can say is like break a certain belief, and I don't know, some people might have like a certain belief super engraved, and it can be very hard to try to convince them otherwise. So I feel our main duty is just to educate, educate and what would be the possibilities if you don't, let's say for example, get the COVID-19 shot. So what the possibilities of what can occur if you don't get the shot, and what the shot's purpose is, and I don't know, show some like sort of statistics or sort of positive aspects to the shot in general. I feel like we, as our main duty would just be to educate. We can't fully convince somebody, and that takes a lot to just break somebody's certain beliefs. So I feel like I'm mentioning, like our main duty would just be there to educate. We can't fully convince anybody to change their beliefs and change their attitudes. Like that's fully up to them. So yeah, our job is just basically to educate on the possible, I don't know, health outcomes of not getting the shot, or the possible health outcomes of getting the shot. What it can do to what it can do down the line, basically. But yeah, that's what I have to say on that.
Susanna, you're absolutely correct, you guys. Our job is not to convince. Our job is not to condemn. Our job is not to reward. Our job is to present information, and to present information fairly and to our best ability without bias. Okay? It's, if, for example, a person says, I don't want to vaccinate my child, they don't subscribe to the health belief model, whether it be their conversation is that somebody else or another country, then our job is simply to communicate. We can share statistics with them. We can create an environmental construct, which is simple, on the edge of social cognitive theory. We can present information to them trans-theoretical to give them the space, that if you would like to think on this, and if you can, reconsider, you're welcome to come back. That becomes pre-contemplative, contemplative, all right? And we can give them the information that if they decide to come back, to what steps they would take to follow through. We can, this is why you can use multiple models and theories depending on the situation to apply. But as Susanna, as you say, we respect that individual. Bernardo, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, for the what other models or theories, I thought that the theory of planned behavior would be a good one to use for somebody who's like, I guess would be in denial or something. You obviously want to respect them if they don't want the help, that's the thing. But maybe, I like the theory of planned behavior. One of the things is attitude, and then and it also takes into consideration like internal and external factors. So you can kind of really figure out, like, is there something that is causing them to have this type of attitude towards their behavior change? And if there is, like, can we address it and maybe help get them into a space where we can like address that problem, and then they do want to engage in that change.
Yeah, and that's, it's interesting. Thank you that you bring that up, because in a classroom setting, that's where we do activities, for example, like what are the barriers, what are your concerns, and get people to talk to each other to try to solicit, to get this information out so that they create the conversation rather than keeping it clamped and shut down. So something to think about in a one-on-one situation, then that would be the personal interview of saying to someone, well, help me understand, what are your concerns? To give them the respect to be able to identify what it is that's blocking them internally from progressing in the conversation. Nice. All right, you guys, you're so cute and so fantastic, because you guys gave me extra time, which I super appreciate. How are you guys doing with all this? Quick check in terms of the health education models and theories. I feel like you guys are getting a better understanding of application and the fluidity of the learning environment. Do you have any comments that you want to share back, or thoughts or observations? No? Yes? Oh my gosh. Every time you guys are silent, I have this vision of myself being hung by little clothespins on a laundry line blowing in the wind, leaving me out to dry. All right, well, you guys, then that's it for the conversation this week. If you don't have any additional thoughts or comments, Marissa, if you want to hang on, I'll take a look. Oh, Bernardo, did you still have a question? Your hand's up still. Bernardo?
No, sorry. I didn't
Okay.
know I had to lower my hand
Oh.
too.
Yes. All right. So point being is, you guys, you've got your next round of reading to do, and those will be the topics for next week. And yes, I've got to work on the curriculum for next week, and I will shift off of the five health models and flip over to your stage 1 to keep you guys moving. And then I'll flip back to that thing. I'll get there. That being said, yes, as I was saying, Marissa, if you have time to hang out, great. If not, then I will follow up, Marissa, with getting yours graded. Okay, that's it, you guys. Otherwise, if you have questions, stick around. If not, have an absolutely awesome, fantastic, and amazing week. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Bye, Professor.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, you guys. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for staying to look over. I just want to make sure I'm on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I am, and then